Welcome back to everyone's favorite series where a YouTuber tortures themselves by watching countless low elo demos in order to improve your gameplay. Similar to other videos, we'll be looking at several demos, all of different elos, to spot 25 game-losing mistakes you need to stop making. We'll begin with Face at level 3, then 5, 7, 9, and then finally level 10. Each mistake we spot will be categorized into 5 different types: movement, positioning, utility, aim, and miscellaneous. Oh, and as always, these demos are sourced from EU, so yeah. Once again, this video also comes with a knife giveaway. If you want to be entered to win this giveaway, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and join the RyderDie Discord. Let's get started. Let's begin with level 3. I'm not sure why this is, but almost every single player I watched in levels 3 and below, whenever they saw someone, you could visibly see them freak out. It's actually insane. For example, take a look at this generational whiff. If this is something that you struggle with, then calm the fuck down. Loosen up that mouse grip. Realize that in this elo, you have anywhere from 5 to 10 business days to kill anyone that you see. Moving on to miscellaneous, why are we not buying armor on pistol rounds? This is beyond criminal. For those of you that are already scrolling down to the comment section to play devil's advocate, allow me to educate you. Armor is good for 2 reasons. 1, it reduces hit bunch by 95%. You know, when your character starts headbanging when someone shoots you in the chest? Also 2, if you're wearing armor, when shot, damage from incoming bullets will only do a percentage of their total damage value. For example, a Glock has a base damage of 30, but its armor penetration value is 47%. Meaning, when shot at an armored player, it will do 30 damage multiplied by that 47%. This means wearing armor effectively doubles the amount of shots you can take from a Glock, as long as they're not a headshot. But I know what you're thinking, USPs are gonna one-shot me in the head anyway. While this may be true, USPs do 35 damage, so even without armor, it'll only take 2 more bullets to kill you, if they shoot you at all. Also, you're giving the people you're playing against too much credit. It may seem like you're always getting one tap because that's all you can remember, but trust me, that is not the case. And if you're never buying armor, I promise, you're dying to 3 body shots far more often than 1 taps. If you don't believe me, take a look at your demos. This may just be a nuke exclusive thing, but while I was watching this demo, I constantly saw people taking unnecessary fall damage. There are easy ways to avoid taking damage while falling, and if you're dropping from a site, you can just jump on the silos or simply drop directly down below to avoid fall damage. If you're wanting to scale mini from top marsh, you can just pull out your knife and just run off of top marsh. This reduces the amount of time you're in the air and also prevents you from taking any damage. Before we move on to something else, I also want to share this play with you. This player climbs up ladder with perfect movement, mind you, just to fall and take damage, then swings in front of Squeaky while looking at his teammates just to swing mini anyway and get one tapped. Riveting. Probably one of the most glaring issues in this elo bracket is positioning. The biggest issue with this was not finding the right fights for your gun you're using. In this example, we see our player try and jump over this railing and then fails and swings broken Squeaky into 2 rifles. Instead, this player could have just simply gone up ladder, made it to top hut, and played the first bit of the round there. That way, his engagements are much shorter and favor him far more. This next has little to do with positioning, but also a lot to do with game sense, which essentially go hand in hand if you think about it. What we see this player do is find contact outside against an AK and an AWP, and instead of repositioning to find a better fight, he re-swings. This is bad just in of itself, but during this entire altercation, we clearly hear someone dropping from top marsh, which somehow we don't hear whatsoever. All in all, there are really 2 things here, okay? Number 1, find fights that favor your gun you're currently using, and 2, open your ears, and also don't repeat guns that have strong advantages over you. There are a lot of wrong things happening in this demo when it comes to utility, but the easiest fix, and the one I saw the most, was not throwing an early round block utility. Now, what I mean by block utility is at the start of the round, depending on where you're playing, it may be important to throw a Molotov towards where the T's could potentially come out of fast. Examples on nuke are Squeaky, Hut, and of course ramp. This is exactly what we see with our ramp player. It looks like they want to throw their utility at first, but then just don't. Then instead of having a favorable 1v1 with a single person that made it past a molly, they get run down by the entire enemy team, which had Tech 9s. Like I said, there are a ton of other things I saw in this elo bracket when it comes to utility, but make sure in your matches, if it is your responsibility to throw early round block utility, that you are indeed doing it. Okay, for a bonus mistake in this elo bracket, we have one more miscellaneous thing, okay? And I just found it to be hilarious when I saw this, but this is consistent throughout all ranks. Stop raging at your teammates. It's not going to fix anything or make anyone play better. Have some self-control and focus on your game. Also, this ladder tech debacle is hilarious. All right, moving on to level 5. The first mistake I saw here from almost every player was some downright horrendous spray control. If you feel like at any point that you're starting to hope and pray that the kill comes through, you either need to do one of two things, if not both. 1, start using this workshop map to practice your spray control, and 2, let go of mouse 1. Allow your gun to reset, and then just shoot the guy. There is nothing worse than watching your teammate lose an easy fight because they are overcommitted to a spray, and their spray control being embarrassingly bad. Now, overall positioning does indeed get a lot better by moving up just a few levels, but a reoccurring theme I saw from this rank was players not playing their spawns. A perfect example of this is when a player decides they want to jump out of mid-window on Mirage. Now, in theory, there is really nothing wrong with this play as long as you're comfortable with navigating mid-round in an unfavorable position. However, what this player fails to consider is that making this play is only ever really possible when you have the best spawn to jump out mid-window. And if you're going to do this, you have to make sure that your murder hole movement is ready to go. When we watch this clip, we see that their movement getting through murder hole really isn't that bad at all, but because they decided to do this with a bad spawn, they got lucky to not die when they jumped out window, but they might as well be. If you take a closer look, they're 11 HP in underpass with 0 utility and not a teammate in sight. The idea behind making this play is you want to catch someone off guard, either pushing underpass from T-apps or to find someone lower mid that doesn't really expect you to be there. And the reason why they're not going to expect you to be there is because they didn't see you. And the reason why they didn't see you is because you exploited the best spawn out of CT to jump out the window, all right? In either case, you want to swap weapons with whomever you did kill if you do this play, and hopefully have a smoke to either block T-apps from lower or lower mid. And if you can't do this, the enemy team, once they discover you, will likely just force you into 2v1 from both angles. Speaking of making it through murder holes, something that I saw a lot of players doing was messing up this movement here. Most of the time, it's really not that big of a deal, and it may add an extra second during retakes, or it could mean you're super late to your mid-window spawn. In this case, it was indeed the latter. If you're an opper, please, for the love of God, start practicing your murder hole movement. So if you do end up getting the perfect spawn for mid-window, you can beat the T's from swinging top mid. But if you mess this movement up, even if you do have the best spawn, just forfeit the fight, especially if you know the enemy team is opping. What's going to end up happening is exactly what happened here. Now, I know this is just one instance of a movement tech on Mirage, but this exact movement tech can be essentially paralleled to other maps. Practicing these like weird nuanced murder hole movement techs, whether it be on Mirage or a different movement tech on a different map, is going to enable you to make better plays, rotate faster, and just generally find better timings on your opponents. I was somewhat torn between two different things when reviewing these demos when it came to utility. There was a few mistakes with taking space with utility, but there was also another even bigger issue that I decided to showcase as the biggest mistake in this elo. That is, giving away your position in a 1v1 by throwing useless utility. Now, it's not wrong to throw utility in a 1v1, but generally speaking, it has to be one of two things. One, the utility that you're throwing should win you the round because you threw it, or two, the enemy should probably already know where you're at if you're going to throw it. If we take a look at Vilner here, he's holding B, waiting for the last remaining enemy to jump out of B apps. But instead, the T takes the long rotate and ends up planting A. During the retake, Vilner decides while moving through con, he wants to throw an HE. At what exactly? No one knows. At a glance, this may not seem like such a big deal, but the biggest advantage that Vilner has in this situation has now officially been forfeited. Before this HE was thrown, the T didn't really have an exact understanding where Vilner could be. Now, once the information is given away, the T does. So a good player, when hearing this, would know exactly where they want to play post plant to make this round as difficult as possible for you. What he also ends up doing is making a step after he taps the bomb, then just like Spider-Man, jumps off triple and wins the round. Amazing. While we're on the topic of post plants, I want to fit something into miscellaneous that could honestly fit into positioning, but I'm going to send it here anyway. What we see is what appears to be an unlosable 1v2 against a CT in a post plant situation. Once the Ts see the CT running into ramp, all they have to do is just find a position where they can spot the bomb if the CT were to decide to tap. That, or they could just send their rifle into CT, and if the operator loses their 1v1, the rifler is still in an almost unlosable position, and they bought time. I've said this countless other times in previous videos, but the easiest way to start climbing is by start improving how you're playing post plants. These situations are what really decides games. If you struggle with this, think about it like this. If you're a T and the bomb gets planted, your new job is to play the bomb and to not get kills. Of course, if there's a situation where it makes sense to swing someone, then do it, of course, but overall, it's always going to be better to just force the CTs into a shitty fight. And this is done by making them tap the bomb and swinging them from unsuspecting angles. The operator in the clip we watched could have potentially done two things. 1, make it into Palace once the CT goes into ramp, or 2, sit Firebox and force the CT to come find you and buy time for your teammate. And the rifle in this situation is even more wrong somehow. All they have to do is run into CT and live. Moving on to level 7. I'm not sure why CS players are starting to do this. Perhaps because there was a craze that happened late last year and early this year about donk sliding. But what a lot of players have a tendency to do in this elo is to just move and shoot. I've slowed down this context so we can take a closer look at what is actually happening and what is done poorly. Now, it's important to note that donk sliding is not bad. In fact, in a lot of ways, it can be good. It makes you a harder target to hit, but there's a balance between being difficult to hit and hitting your shots. If you practice donk sliding and you're able to do it in a way where you aren't sacrificing much accuracy, then absolutely go for it. But if you're curious why your aim feels off or why your shots aren't landing when you swing swan, it's likely because you aren't counter strafing or you're crouch swinging wrong. When we take a closer look at BYD, we see that he starts shooting before he hits his crouch key. If you want to slide into an angle, you have to crouch first and then almost immediately start shooting. However, you have to allow for some time to pass for your character model to regain accuracy by slowing down via pressing crouch. This is what it should look like. Notice how when I swing, instead of shooting first, then crouching, I'm crouching, allowing just a second of time to pass, then begin shooting. Doing this doesn't alleviate your responsibility to correctly control recoil as well. If all of this seems a little extra and you'd rather just swing and counter strafe, then please do so. In fact, for new players, I strongly encourage you to start with just doing that. Swing, counter strafe, then shoot. All in all, stop moving and shooting. It's bad. A mistake I saw a lot while watching these level 7 matches is trading, which falls under positioning. If you know or see that your teammate is likely going to swing an angle where an enemy is likely to be, you need to place yourself in an appropriate position to be able to refrag them. Speaking of refrag, this video is sponsored by a website similar to them, but even better, scl.gg. If you want to help your team improve, I highly encourage you to check out their website. It's an all-in-one team improvement service. With one subscription, 7 players get access to a dedicated server, get live feedback during scrims, watch matches back with a state-of-the-art 2D replay system, and with any 2D replay, you can transform that into a real round with bots so your team can relive the situation and correct their mistakes. Get 50% off your first 6 months by using code RyderDie50 at scl.gg. Thank you scl.gg for sponsoring this video. For our miscellaneous category, we have angle clearing. If you were to watch over a high elo pug and compare it to your gameplay, you'll see insane differences with how pros clear angles. This has a lot to do with crosshair placement, how you swing, and where you position your character model. Comparing these two players side by side, you can almost feel the confidence difference. My advice is swing with confidence. Consider where your crosshair is and make sure you're only using A and D when you swing. Doing so will make it as difficult as possible to hit and will make it easier for you to counter strafe. I assume that level 7 players will be less prone to dying with utility in their hand, but holy shit, that is not the case. A good rule of thumb is this: if an enemy can be somewhere, do not swing with utility in your hand. If you have to clear out where an enemy could be first, do so, then pull out utility. This is as simple as it gets. The last one really is similar to the aiming mistake I mentioned, but this also falls into movement. It is not good to be moving and shooting most of the time. What I mean by that is this: if you have an SMG, it's almost always okay to move and shoot, and even with an A1S at really short ranges, it can be okay to move and shoot. There are a few guns that, at almost any range however, are terrible to move and shoot with. One of those guns being the AK. We see our player here scale ramp trying to take A, finds someone with a deagle, and instead of just counter strafing and killing them, they never let go of their movement keys. This was something I saw in this demo countless times. All you have to do is just stop moving, shoot your gun. Moving on to level 9, there are a few things I want to talk about when it comes to mistakes in the miscellaneous category. First being, if you get bomb plant on T side during pistol round, but end up losing the round, always force the following round. The reason why you want to do this is to attempt to ruin the enemy team's economy. If the CTs lose that following round, they start the third round with almost no money and have to do what is called a double save, which basically means they have shit guns for 2 rounds in a row. Another mistake I saw was just generally being unaware of gaps around the map. When I say a gap on the map, I mean a spot on the map where your teammates are not, so the enemy team can be. I saw one player in particular get caught off guard several times and a half from just generally being unaware of where the enemy team could be. If this feels like you in your matches, I highly encourage you to check out your radar more often. By checking your radar, you can quickly scan to see where the openings are. Those openings being just where your teammates are not. The higher elo you get, the more often those openings will be exploited. The last miscellaneous mistake I want to mention is holding smokes. In higher elos, players will start constantly throwing lurk smokes in order to get a free kill. To properly play defensive around these smokes, your crosshair needs to be in the right spot. Players do not walk straight out of these smokes. Instead, what they'll do is they'll walk around them on the edges. So it's your responsibility to hold your crosshair on the side of the smoke that you suspect them to lurk out of. The better the lurk smoke, the harder it will be to choose a side, but when in doubt, isolate a side and keep your crosshair where you think they're going to lurk through. I know we covered this in level 7, but holy shit. Players even at level 9 are chronically moving and shooting. I won't talk about this more, but please, if this is you, stop. Get help. Positioning during post plant is one of the easiest ways to spot the difference between a level 9 player and low level 10 players. In this clip, we're on pistol round. The T's end up making it a 1v3 and the bomb carrier plants default for some reason. I'm going to pause right here and just briefly mention how important plant locations are. This will enable your team to play in more locations post plant. If you have the liberty to plant wherever you want because you have full site control, plant in the most optimal location. That location, of course, just being the spot where your teammates can play from the most angles if the CTs were to attempt a retake. Now, if they were to plant E-box and B main, the E-box player would not have to peek anything, and if the planner were playing this correctly, they would have just planted for E-box and B main and then just go B main and start listening to the bomb countdown. These rounds are so easy. If you're able to start doing this properly, you'll stop losing these rounds, and I promise you'll climb hundreds of elo. Instead, what we see happen is both players peek, and because the E-box player couldn't play for what it is planned for, they were forced to fight. And the planner just decides to not play post plant, picks the fight, and just loses what originally started as an unlosable round, a 1v3. This next mistake is really just like a basic mistake that people across all elos are making, but in this demo particularly, what I saw was really bad crosshair placement. I've made a few videos about this before, but my advice for fixing poor crosshair placement is to make a conscious effort in your games to consider where your crosshair is, and to also play pre-fire maps to build that muscle memory on where your crosshair should/could be. There really isn't much to say about utility usage here in level 9. Some players are better at it than others, but in this clip we see a player smoke themselves off E-box after getting a pick and then just run through the smoke and die. It's clear that their intention was to smoke inside of E-box, but their on-the-fly smoke failed and resulted in them having to make a terrible play to get the gun that they earned. The only real way to remedy this is 1, play the game more, or 2, go into an offline map and practice throwing utility exactly where you want it to on the fly. This is something that the pros are really good at and can be the difference in some rounds that you play. When pro players are playing their matches, whether it be on Face-It Pugs or an actual and professional scene, there isn't a lineup for everything that they want to throw. They understand the geometry, the trajectory, and the physics in Counter-Strike when it comes to throwing utility, and they've done this over thousands and thousands of hours. Now, of course, if you don't have thousands of hours of play under your belt, it may be difficult to predict where your nades are going to land. But like I said, the best way to remedy this, go into an offline map and just start trying to throw things on the fly. See how they land. If you do this just for a few hours or maybe even just like 20 minutes a day, by a week, 2 week, or a month's time, your ability to throw utility on the fly will be vastly improved. Okay, finally, moving on to low level 10. The first thing that I saw with a few players was holding their crosshair way too close to an angle. It takes conscious effort to think about how the enemy team will swing, and most of the time when someone is aware of where you are exactly, they aren't going to slow walk into the corner. Instead, they're going to wide swing to peek you. If you expect someone to wide swing you, I highly encourage you to hold your crosshair way further from the angle than it is normally. This will result in a higher first bullet accuracy, and if this is done correctly with the Deagle and AK, will result in far more one-taps than what you're used to. For our miscellaneous category, we have the all-time classic, which some of you know I absolutely cannot stand, know when to buy head armor. For crying out loud, in this clip, it's the second round of the half, and the T's were able to get planned down during their pistol round, even though they lost. The player we're watching, however, greeds their money for an A1S and no head armor. Now, if you were to think about this logically, the absolute worst gun the T's are going to have this following round at close range is going to be a Glock. And without head armor, a Glock is going to one-tap you. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be buying head armor round 2 against the T's force. What we end up seeing is our player dying to a Galil, which was able to one-tap them because they had no head armor. We're already at 25 game losing mistakes, so instead of just stopping the video here, we're going to finish off the video with the rest of this level 10 demo. Because I'm going above and beyond for you, all I ask is if you enjoyed the video, leave a like on the video. If you want to see content like this in the future, consider subscribing. Also, check out my RyderDie, they're pretty sick. Now, what I'm not going to do for the remaining mistakes that I noticed in the level 10 demo is talk about their utility and movement, because after scanning this demo and another demo and another demo, I noticed that most players, 99% of the time, especially in EU level 10, are throwing decent utility and also have okay movement at worst. But most players, to a degree, can have bad positioning in level 10. There are 2 more things that I want to talk about, and that is 1, being too predictable, and 2, taking useless space on T side. Let's start with being too predictable. This is something that you honestly shouldn't see in this elo, but nonetheless is something a lot of players still do. If you're playing the same spot every round on CT side, just understand that you're incredibly easy to read, and the better players you play against will punish you over and over again. A general rule of thumb is to play somewhere new on site until the enemy team spots you holding there, and then just switch it up the following round. Now for number 2, taking useless space. In this level 10 demo I watched, I saw the same person walk into B apps over and over again on T side. Now there's certain certain parts of the map where taking space will actually do a lot of good for your team, but B apps generally is not one of those spots. Again, a general rule of thumb is to almost always default for some sort of mid control on maps where mid actually grants you access to both sites. Taking main control on a site that only really has 2 entrances, one being mid, doesn't really do much for your team. And if you think about it, all it really actually does, it takes the anchor's crosshair and puts it on you, which it would already be there even if you weren't there. Unless you're able to always get one on the site that you're pushing, there really isn't much of a reason to always be there every round. That's it for the video. Before I close out, I want to quickly say thank you to SCL.GG for sponsoring the video. Be sure to check out their website and use code RYDER50 for 50% off your first 6 months. Also, a massive thank you to Maestro AI for partnering with the channel. If you want to leg up in the skins trading, be sure to check out their website, which, by the way, just received a massive overhaul. And one last thing, if you know me, you know I'm a big advocate on mental health. So much so that I've decided to host a tournament where I partnered with Mental Health America. If you want a chance to win $5,000 and support a good cause, find 4 friends and head over to my Diffuse the Stigma tournament page. Playoffs will start streaming on the 30th of May. However, open qualifiers will begin on the 23rd of May. And that is 2025. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with my content, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. As always, thanks for watching.